Good afternoon, hockey fans. I'm Chris Durrell. I'm here for RotorPros.com to bring you my DFS NHL breakdown for Thursday, February 21st. I've normally done the Jaeger Bomb shots of the night where I cover my core plays. Good afternoon, hockey fans. I'm Chris Durrell. I'm here. Sorry about that extra sound there. Normally I go over my top two core plays at each position. Tonight I'm going to break down the slate a little bit more, go over a little bit of strategy here as well. So we are live right now. So if you do have any questions, definitely head over to the right-hand side of the screen and enter your questions in there. I'll help you out as much as possible. I've also got a copy of my cheat sheet listed there as well if you'd like to follow along. That's where my plays are going to be coming from. Going to kind of talk about a few core plays at each position, as well as some GPP plays, some pivots. Going to look at the slate as a whole, some of the games. We've got a big 11-game slate tonight, so kind of go over that here as well. So I'm going to share my cheat sheet here, share my screen here in just a minute. But before we get started, just kind of want to give you a heads up that we've changed a few things here at RotorPros.com. The price of our subscriptions have got a little bit cheaper. So definitely, if you're not a member yet, definitely head over to RotorPros.com and get your free trial today. So we're just going to have a little look at this here right now. Going to go to RotorPros.com. You see in the top right-hand corner, you got the sign-up button. Click on that and you get to this page. So we've now got weekly subscriptions. $5 a week, and that includes a 3-day trial. We've got monthly subscription, $15 a month, 7-day trial there, and then a yearly subscription down to $150 a year, and that's a 7-day trial there as well. You can cancel, so you don't get charged after your free trial within the time before that 3 days or 7 days is up. And what that gives you is access to our premium articles. It gives you access to our member chat room. We've got a Slack chat set up. We're in here giving one-on-one guess you call it counseling, trying to help everybody to, become a better DFS player, not just, provide the lineups. We do provide skeleton lineups as well on a nightly basis, and that is pretty much our core plays and how we go about constructing our rosters when looking at cash games, as well as GPPs there as well. So that's some of the service that we provide. We cover NFL, NHL, NBA. We got NASCAR started last week, the Daytona 500. We're in week 2 there. We got MLB starting here right away, working on the cheat sheet. We cover soccer, talking about the Champions League as well as the English Premier League there as well. We got people that cover pretty much any sport you want to play DFS for. So make sure to check us out at rotorpros.com. And with that, let's jump into tonight's slate. So here is my cheat sheet. A little bit about it for anyone that's maybe new to the cheat sheet, hasn't played with it before. This first tab you're going to see is the matchups tab. This is just every matchup tonight. So as you can see, we've got 11 matchups on tap for this NHL slate here tonight. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 games with a 6.5 total. We got Washington at Toronto, Ottawa at New Jersey, Buffalo at Tampa, and then the San Jose Sharks at Pittsburgh. As right now is sitting at a 7 over/under. Last time we seen a 7 over/under was the Blackhawks and Ottawa Senators the other night, and they combined for 15 goals. So when looking at that, when breaking this down, the first thing I always look at is which teams am I going to be targeting right off the bat, which ones kind of stand out to me the most, and that is definitely going to be one at that 7 over/under. I like both sides of it. Neither goaltender is really elite, so I'm not really worried about that. Both teams are top 5 in offense, but Pittsburgh is 26th on the road, San Jose on the road, looking at their road defense, is 26, so they downgrade a little bit. And then Pittsburgh actually downgrades a little bit on defense when they are on home ice as well. So both outside the top 25, looking at defense of those splits. I also like tonight one of the situations going on with Ottawa. They're looking to trade some guys. Trade deadline is on the 25th here. So what we see with the Ottawa tonight is that Matt Duchene is not going to be playing. They're going to kind of hold him out. He is one that is going to be traded pretty much for sure, almost guaranteed, before the deadline. So they don't want him to get hurt. So word is that he's not going to be playing tonight. We'll need official word before we keep him out, but I'm really not targeting anyone on the Ottawa side of things tonight. Mark Stone, if he doesn't accept, he's supposed to be accepting the offer that Ottawa has put out there for him for an extension. If he does not accept that, he'll be on the trade block too. They might sit him out. And then you got Ryan Dzingel there as well. So all three of those, top guys for Ottawa offensively might not be in the lineup tonight, so we're going to have to watch out for that. But on the other side of things, I love the New Jersey Devils tonight at home. So you can see they're only 18th in offense, but Ottawa is the worst defensive team in the league, and if they're going to be missing one or multiple of their top players tonight, I think it's a good time to jump on New Jersey, and I think there's some value there as well, and we'll get to that once we go through some of these individual positions, which players I'm looking at, what stacks I'm going to be looking at for that team. After that, I do like Tampa Bay. They're minus 260 favorites, biggest on the board tonight. They're the only team with a projected goal over 4, so they're 4.1 right now. Number 1 offense in the league, going up against Buffalo, who has struggled lately. So we want to pay attention to that as well. So I think it's a good spot for Tampa. They're probably going to be chalky. They've separated themselves. They're 17 points separated from any other team in the league right now. Number 1 defense. They're top 5 in offense, defense, power play, penalty kill. So they kind of touch all the bases there, and they're going up against a weaker Buffalo team here. So definitely looking at that. Buffalo has lost 3 straight coming into this one, giving up 14 goals in their last 3 games. So Tampa's definitely going to be on the top of my radar tonight. The Toronto-Washington game I'm definitely interested in with that 6.5 total. More on the Toronto side. Nazem Kadri is going to be out. So on their third line, we're just going to bring it up, bring this across here and look at their lines from this morning at their morning skate. Not a whole bunch changed in their top 6. Still got Hyman, Tavares, Marner, Kapanen, Matthews, Marleau. Third line is going to be made up of Andreas Johnson, William Nylander, and Connor Brown. But what stands out the most here for value tonight, I do like Kapanen skating with Matthews. I like those two as a cash stack. I'm going to talk about that strategy here shortly. But Andreas Johnson, he's skating in the third line, but he was skating with the top power play this morning at morning skate. So that is something to keep note there. He's very cheap on both sides. And skating with Matthews, Tavares, Marner, Riley on that top power play line, that adds a ton of value for him. So definitely going to have him on there as well. We'll talk about him here in a minute. So a little bit of strategy before we jump into the actual picks that I'm liking tonight. So I'm just going to jump into that. Yeah, so what we're going to be looking at here is there's cash games and GPPs, of course. So on these bigger slates, when it comes to cash games, I do like running two or three 2-man stacks. And what I'll do there is either some teams you got to go with, like I just said with Toronto, Matthews is the expensive center, and then you can go and you can put him with Kapanen, who skates with him on that line. He's kind of cheap. You could also go Matthews with Johnson because Johnson joins him on the top line. So I don't necessarily look for those 2-man stacks to be on the same line at even strength. But I am looking for them if they're not on the same line in cash games to be skating together on the top power play. What this does is it gives you, if I'm targeting, say, 3 teams, I'm picking out 3 teams. Those are my favorite offenses tonight. I think they're going to score the most goals. It gives me exposure to that team's, say, top 2 lines, as well as their top power play unit, as those players are going to correlate together with that. So 2 players. It's an expensive route, but just for an example, Sidney Crosby centers the top line, Evgeny Malkin centers the second line. They jump together on the top line. So if Pittsburgh's in like a super elite matchup, close to what tonight's is, if you want to go that route in cash, go stars and scrubs, and you want to do a 2-man stack, you could definitely run that. So that's one example there to go along with the Toronto example. So they don't necessarily have to be on the same line, but if they're not on the same line, like I said, I want them to skate together on the power play unit. Something else I'll do when talking GPPs, there's a bunch of different strategies to go with GPPs, but I definitely like going 3 to 4-man stacks for GPPs. There's been a lot of scoring this year, so even game stacking has really worked out, i.e. the Chicago-Ottawa game the other night where they combined for 15 goals. If you game stacked that one, you definitely won. You probably didn't even need a goalie in that. You could have got negative points from your goalie and probably still cashed. So the game stacking definitely works. So what I'll do is, like tonight, for example, if I'm going to run, say, a Pittsburgh line 1 with, say, Rust, Gensel, and Crosby, I like running that back with 1 or 2 players at least from San Jose. It doesn't always work when you're talking expensive guys. When you're game stacking 2 teams that are like Chicago, Ottawa is a little different because Ottawa was a little bit cheaper, so you could really easily get them together. San Jose and Pittsburgh have some expensive guys in their team, so you really got to watch out who you're picking when you're game stacking there. So I don't mind taking a little bit of value and maybe leaving the Crosbys off of my lineups just so I can get more exposure to the whole game as a whole. So definitely look at it from that perspective. But, for instance, if you're just targeting one team like expensive Tampa Bay tonight and you're going with like a Point, Kucherov, Gord's off that line tonight, but I think it's Tyler Johnson who's going to be with them. You're going to go with that line, which maybe is a little bit more expensive. I like going with, say, a cheaper New Jersey to pair with those expensive teams because you can get a full line stack on both those teams to put together, which gives you the most upside if both those lines happen to go off. And then what else I'll do is if I all of a sudden decide that, say, Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh are my two favorite expensive teams to stack tonight in that order. And then New Jersey I like as well. And then let's say Carolina. So I got those 4 teams narrowed down. What I'm going to do once I narrow down those 4 teams is I'm going to build a bunch of Tampa Bay stacks with the same players. And then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to fit Pittsburgh with them. I'm going to fit New Jersey with them. I'm going to fit Carolina with them. Just so there's 4 stacks right there. So I've got 4 Tampa Bay stacks. But with those stacks, I've got different teams double stacked with them so that if that Tampa Bay stack does go off, I've got more of a chance to actually use that to my advantage and maybe finish ahead, closer to the top when you're looking at your GPP final scores and stuff like that. So definitely keep that in mind when you're double stacking. Don't just randomly pick, if you're doing 10 lineups, just randomly pick 10 different combinations because you need to be more perfect then. Whereas if you're doing 10 lineups and you use 4 Tampa Bay cores, you've got a chance if Tampa Bay goes off 4 chances to hit with your other stacks with your main core. So that's kind of the way I look at it when doing GPPs. If you want to be contrarian when doing GPPs, there's a couple ways. So, for instance, Chicago the other night, it didn't quite work out, but you knew going in that they were going to be the chalky stack of the night, like your DeBrincat, Taves, and Kane were going to be kind of your top 3. One way to be contrarian on a slate like that, not necessarily tonight because it's a bigger slate, but on a smaller slate, if you know someone's going to be like all their guys are going to be 40 to 60% owned in GPP, go with the second or third line, like secondary scoring options for that team. Because if, say, like a Strome, Cahoon, players like that for Chicago go out there and get 2 or 3 of, say, the 4 goals in the game, not only do 40 or 60% of the field all of a sudden going to be behind you, but then you've got those guys that are scoring. The rest of your opponents are going to have the guys that didn't score on that team that are high owned. So you're automatically going to get a huge jump in the standings of your whatever tournament contest you're entered in there. So definitely makes a lot of sense from a strategy standpoint, contrarian that way. Something else you can do is if, say, a goalie is going to be super high owned, on any given slate, everyone's talking about that goalie. Stack the other team. Play a different goalie in the same price range as that goalie, and then stack the team against that high projected on goalie. It doesn't always work out because, the good goalies are the good goalies, but as we've seen lately, good goalies can have bad games. So stacking against them, it's just kind of the same the way I look at it from MLB. Sure, Max Scherzer, or Bumgarner or whatever, but some of the best GPP days I've ever had was being in the contrarian approach and playing the team who's going to be like less than 5% owned, 2% owned, because everyone is on the goalie in that game or the pitcher in that game for MLB. So that's definitely another way to be contrarian in your GPPs. And then you can just stack like a low projected team. Tonight there's a ton of teams, as you can see. So just go pick one of these 5.5 total games, like LA against Nashville. I probably wouldn't go that far in an 11-game slate. Maybe if you're talking a 4-game slate, I would go with someone that has the lowest projection per se. But definitely someone like Dallas tonight, 2.6 down here. The Islanders against Edmonton could be low owned. Vancouver or Arizona against one another. All these teams have under 3 goal projections. They're going to be very low owned tonight. So that's the third way I like going contrarian in GPPs. So with that, we're going to jump in now. I'm going to go and I'm going to share my screen here once again, and we're going to jump into the picks, some of my core plays at each position. So there we got the sheet back up. So what we're going to do is go to the goalie position here first of all. And the first one that I like is Andrei Vasilevsky, Tampa Bay -260 home favorites. He's only allowed 1 goal in his last 3 games, 2 shutouts. He's been just phenomenal lately. His price is up there, but he's, like I said, he's facing the Buffalo team that's lost 3 straight, 4 of their last 5 games, while scoring 2 or less goals in every game except for that win against the Islanders there. So they're not scoring a whole bunch lately. Tampa Bay is easily the best team in the league. If you're paying up, Vasilevsky is definitely the choice. Pekka Rinne stands out as well as -230 favorite. against LA, who is second last in overall offense. They are 29th in road offense, scoring like 2.2 goals per game. I think I'd rather lean with Vasilevsky here, $100 cheaper on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, it makes a ton of sense going with Pekka Rinne because you get that $1,100 discount there. Both goalies are elite. They're in really good matchups. They're both at home, so definitely like going that route tonight if you're paying up. So that's Vasilevsky for DraftKings, Rinne for FanDuel. For GPPs, I like going to Jordan Binnington. He is a rookie. St. Louis has been red hot, but he's just been absolutely incredible. He's taking starts away from Jake Allen just because he's been playing just so well. He's won in 9 straight games. He's got a win. Only allowed 2 goals in his last 3, and overall this season he's 13-1-1, the .937 save percentage. So he's been absolutely. Eventually he's going to come down to earth, but he's facing a Dallas team that just hasn't been that great. Especially on the road. They've struggled a lot more on the road. And outside of really Tyler Seguin, no one's really producing, no one really to be scared of. So I think they can definitely shut down Dallas tonight. Dallas has been shut out twice. They've lost 5 of their last 6 games, been shut out twice, and scored more than 2 goals just twice in that time. So definitely like Binnington again. His price is coming up, so people might start, let's just go to Rinne. Let's just go to Vasilevsky. So I think Binnington's maybe a little bit lower owned. And the next guy I'm looking at went through a long stretch without winning, came back, and he's back in the good graces with the New Jersey Devils is Corey Schneider. He has won 2 straight starts and saved 49 of 50 shots in that time as well. That second one there at Minnesota, he came in. He did pick up the win in that game, but he only ended up playing about just over half the game. So kind of midway through the second period, he jumped in there and got the win, and then came back and got saved 34 of 35 shots against Buffalo to pick up his 2nd straight win. So he's kind of on a roll. He's super cheap. I mean, if you're looking to stack 2 big teams tonight, San Jose, Pittsburgh game stack, Schneider's a guy that I'm going to be looking at fitting in there for goalie to be able to get that done. So definitely looking at that route for goalie. And then jumping over to the center position, right at the top, I talked about the Tampa Bay game. I'm definitely looking at Braden Point. He might have something to prove. He missed a meeting the other day. He got held out of the game, so he should be back in the lineup tonight. I absolutely love the Point Kucherov 2-man line stack there for Tampa Bay. Point is having a career season, 78 points in 59 games. He doesn't have the biggest upside, as you can see, like looking at his Corsi numbers, only 13. It's a little below average, right around average, I guess you could say. But definitely tonight in this matchup against Buffalo, love Point. Malkin is still too cheap on DraftKings. He and Crosby have been about the same production here lately. Malkin comes at a discount on both sides, so I definitely lean Malkin in cash. Crosby and GPP there. And Malkin has been absolutely ridiculous here lately. I don't know why DraftKings hasn't really adjusted his price a whole bunch. 13 points his last 10 games. The shot volume's way up lately. 33 shots over his last 10 games and 5 points on the power play. Skating around 19 minutes per game. So there's a lot going on there for him. Definitely like the Pittsburgh San Jose, like I talked about, the 7 over under. And Malkin's the guy. If I'm playing someone under that game in cash game, he's the guy I'm picking. Sebastian Aho, talked about him a lot this year. He comes at a bit of a discount from those guys that we just talked about. He is up there 9 shots per 60, 17.8 Corsi per 60. So that's a really high floor for him, especially at his price. Gives him a nice points per dollar. He's already surpassed his career high from last year. He got 67 points in 60 games and a plus 21. And pretty much what that means is he's just not out there a lot when they're getting scored on. And when they are scoring, he's out there as well. So he played really well the other night. Couldn't pick up the points. I think Carolina's maybe a contrarian way to go tonight. I think with San Jose, Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, who else have we got out there tonight? Even the Rangers a little bit. New Jersey we talked about. I think Carolina's going to be a bit overlooked on the road in in Florida, sorry. It's a pretty good matchup there. Florida's 28th in defense. But coming off a stinker last game, they lost 2-1 to New York. The Carolina guys kind of let everyone down, and they were very high owned. So I think that makes a good situation to get back on Aho and Nino. That'll be one of my favorite 2-man stacks tonight. Like the Rangers, Zibanejad and Zuccarello. Zuccarello's over here on wing. We'll go back up to the top. He's pretty cheap when you're looking at your wingers. So if you're playing cash games and you want to load up in a good matchup, they're going to be low owned. Minnesota has struggled, especially if they start Dubnyk. He's been absolutely terrible lately. So Zibanejad and Zuccarello make a ton of sense to pair those guys together in cash games. If I don't use them in cash, I'm definitely going to have exposure to some Ranger stacks in GPPs there as well. San Jose I talked about. I like Logan Couture. He's very cheap tonight, so he's going to be a core play for me. Skating on the top line. He's been very good lately. And then Nico Hischier for New Jersey. So New Jersey, when I'm looking at them, I'm going to go up here. We're going to look at their line rushes this morning. Yeah, morning skate this morning. So I'm liking their top line here. Hischier, Johansson, and Bratt. All three have been very consistent lately, much better than the rest of the lines out there. So that's the stack that I'm going to run from New Jersey. It is very, very affordable. It's especially on FanDuel. It is someone I'm going to run with my San Jose's, my Pittsburghs, and my Tampa Bay stacks. New Jersey, that line is definitely one that I'm going to be running with them tonight just because of their value that they present us with. So then, sorry, excuse me. Some GPP plays that I'm going to be looking at tonight. I already mentioned Crosby in that game. Austin Matthews with Kapanen, and then if you want and you're running an expensive stack but you still want to get Matthews in there, you can run Matthews with Kapanen and Johnson. Kapanen skates with him on the second line. Johnson jumps up and skates with him on the top line. I also like, and I didn't mark him on here yet, is John Tavares. If you want to stack Matthews, Tavares, Kapanen, and Johnson together, I think that makes a good Toronto stack if you feel Toronto's going to, take it to Washington tonight. And then Thomas Hertl, he was a core play for me last week. He's kind of cooled off, and the top line's kind of taken over for San Jose here lately. But I do like Hertl and Kane for GPP, getting them together in a GPP lineup. Kuznetsov skating with Ovechkin. So if you want to stack that Washington-Toronto game, which is another tough one because Tavares, Matthews, not so much Kuznetsov, but Ovechkin is very expensive. But like I said, there's a ton of value out there tonight. We're going to get through it here in a minute that allows you to make those stacks going stars and scrubs with a high-end stack like that. And then I also mentioned the Islanders. They're going to be super low-owned. Probably one of my favorite contrarian stacks tonight is, again, Barzal, Lee, Brock Nelson, and Jordan Eberle, the #1 power play unit there for the Islanders. That's pretty much it for my centers. Moving on to wing here. Of course, it's a lot bigger position. We need to fill 3 of these positions plus a utility on DraftKings. So what I'm looking at, Kucherov, obviously, for Tampa Bay. He's been just absolutely crazy lately how good he's been for Tampa Bay. A little bit overlooked just because Patrick Kane's been on a 19-game win streak where he's got like 42 points. So a little bit overlooked, but Kucherov's also averaging 2 points per game over his last 20 points. 28 shots on goal, so the shot volume isn't quite there, but he's a little bit cheaper than what Kane was, so I think he makes a great core play. Half of those 20 points have also come on the power play, and he's skating right about 20 minutes per game right now, so definitely top core play. Joe Pavelski to go with Couture on the top line there for San Jose at 6,800 on DraftKings, 7,800 on FanDuel. He's in there as well. I'm looking at the Pittsburgh-San Jose game. Timo Meyer's up there on that top line as well. His price has actually come down. He's definitely a core play for me on FanDuel. You're looking at his advanced stats this season, 11.72 shots per 60, 20.6 Corsi 4 per 60. And for those of you that are new and wondering what the heck is he talking about, he's talking about Corsi. Shots are obvious. Shots are ones that go on goal. Now, those are the ones that count for DraftKings and FanDuel scoring. Corsi is just like an indicator of how much that player is actually shooting. So what that means is 20.6 per 60. So every 60 minutes, he's firing 20.6 shots towards the goal. So those are shots that hit the goal that are saved, go in, shots that miss the net, and shots that are blocked. So it's just an overall volume thing. So your averages are right around like 15. You get the guys in the 18 to 22. Those are your elite guys that I look for, especially in cash games that have a high floor. Or if guys aren't scoring a whole bunch, and maybe their shot volume's a little bit down, but their Corsi's way up, you can kind of expect positive regression in that area. You can look at it that way, or vice versa. So then what else stands out is I've also been tracking scoring chances for. So he's right up there among the leaders in the entire league, and 14 scoring chances per 60, but then he's also up there in high danger. Now, high danger scoring chances are, as probably you've already guessed, pretty obvious, are going to be the ones that are, right in front of the net in the slot area versus, outside a little bit more. That's kind of how they rank scoring chances, medium scoring chances, high danger scoring chances. So with all that said, Meier's definitely a core play for me. Kind of dragged on here with Meier, but his elite stats are there to back up his production this season, 51 points in 57 games. Love San Jose won tonight. Talked about Zuccarello, pairing him with Zibanejad. Talked about Nino Ryder, going him and Aho together as even in cash games just because of the affordability of them in cash games. And then going down, before we get into the GPP plays, I want to touch on some of these value guys that can tie some of these expensive guys together on this big slate. Very important on these bigger slates to get in and find these value plays. So right off the bat, we've got Brian Rust. He's skating with Sidney Crosby on the top line for Pittsburgh. Kasperi Kapanen skates with Austin Matthews on the second line for Toronto. Talked about that. Patrick Hornquist, more of a GPP play. He's kind of been down, but definitely looking at him, skates top power play on Pittsburgh. Marcus Johansson, talked about him when we talked about New Jersey there. Top line, he's just too cheap for what he is providing lately, and I marked him green because he's going to be a core play, and I'll even consider him in cash games when I start my cash game build. And then same with Andreas Johnson. I don't mind using him. These guys got low shot volume, but they're so cheap, and the opportunity is there that gives them huge. It helps their floor, but also gives them a bigger upside as well. And at these prices, 4,100 on both sides, Johnson in cash games or GPPs helps you get to some of those more expensive plays that I talked about, especially if you're paying up for Rini or Vasilevsky in net. Going down even further, Kevin Fiala is skating this morning on Nashville's line rushes on the top line. That's something that we need to pay attention to tonight. Craig Smith has already been ruled out. Now, Victor Arvidsson wasn't present at morning skate either. So as you can see, Forsberg and Johansson, Fiala's up there in the top line. So I definitely like looking at him at 3,900 on DraftKings, especially. 4,800 is getting up there for him on FanDuel. Bratt, he's on the top line for New Jersey with Johansson and Hischier. So definitely like him tonight at 3,900 on DraftKings, 4,000 on FanDuel. And then two guys I'm looking at from Pittsburgh as well are Nick Bjugstad. He's down on the third line, but he's skating the second power play unit. Same with Zach Aston Reese. He's jumped up to the second line with Malkin and Kessel, and only 3,600 on both sides. He's definitely going to be another core play for me. Helps fill in those lineups. Send some GPP guys tonight. Alex Ovechkin he's always in play. He's one of the best goal scorers in the league. 42 goals already this season going up against Toronto. So if you're game stacking there, he definitely makes a ton of sense. I don't think he's necessary. We need to get him in cash games. With all the other good plays, you can go a little bit more balanced and fitting him in cash games. Tarasenko, I think you could definitely go with him. I didn't mark him just because I kind of got Ovechkin over him as my GPP play tonight. Going to watch Arvidsson here. I think he's going to be out of the lineup. We go down. We got Jake Gensel. He's skating with Crosby on the top line. Kessel has struggled skating with Malcolm on the second line, so I got him labeled as a GPP there as well. Also skates on the top power play unit. Toivo Teravainen used to skate with Aho on the top line for Carolina. He's now down on the second line, but he's still up there on the top power play line. So his price has come down because he's kind of got demoted down to the second line. I guess you could say demoted. Top six is top six for any team, really. But he's skating on the top power play. So, like I said, that Carolina presents a nice GPP spot tonight. And then Justin Williams as well. He skates on the top line for Carolina. So if you're just running a straight Carolina one, you would go Aho, Nino, and Williams. And then if you wanted, just for GPP sake, you could add Teravainen in there as well. And then I already mentioned Patrick Hornquist. All right, so we covered the skaters, the centers and the wingers. So now we're going to jump into defensemen. Obviously, the San Jose guys, Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson, they provide elite value, whether you're cash games, GPPs. Sandwich right in the middle is a nice GPP play tonight. I think Chris Letang makes sense. He's up there almost a point per game on the season. I don't like him for cash games. As you can see, right between Burns and Karlsson, his Corsi numbers are down. He gets about the same amount of blocks, which is kind of what I look for from defensemen in cash games, is a combination of shots and blocks. Want about 3 or 4 per game. From those, maybe a little bit more from these elite guys, but Letang hasn't really provided that, so he's more of a GPP play for me. Same with going down a little bit and looking at Morgan Rielly. He's kind of cooled off a little bit, but he's still right around a point per game on the season. skates on that top power play unit, top pairing for Toronto, and I think Carlson and Burns take up the ownership at the top, so I think he makes a nice pivot as well. Victor Hedman, if he's back in the lineup, I think he's going to be a little bit lower on because people may not notice that he was out of the lineup, or back in the lineup, sorry. And then go look at some value. I think value is very important with NHL tonight just because of the high-end centers and goalies and wingers that we've already talked about that we're going to want to get in our lineup. So I like Petrie for Montreal going up against Philly on FanDuel only. 4,000 for him there, just too cheap for what he can provide. I like Provorov for Philly. He's been really at his price point right now, he's providing excellent value. Looking at his last 10 games here, he's only got 4 points in the last 10 games, but he's got 27 shots, so the shot volume is there. He's playing big minutes, over 26 minutes per game. He's also got 19 blocks in that time as well, so his fantasy numbers averages are up about a full point on DraftKings and about 5-6 points on FanDuel over the last 10 games. So his price hasn't really reflected that yet. So at 4,600, I think he's definitely going to be a core play for me on defense. Vince Dunn, St. Louis has been red hot. I talked about how Dallas has struggled. Vince Dunn skates on the power play, so he does get that time. He doesn't get the best ice time, as you can see, about 17 minutes per game on the season, but he gets a ton of scoring chances for a defenseman at this price because he skates on the power play there as well. So definitely going to be looking at that. And then right below him, also another flyer who's too cheap and hasn't really picked up. The sites haven't really increased his price quite yet. It's Travis Sanheim. Since they changed the coaching and culture in Philly, the young players are getting more chance. He's skating on the top pair, and he's getting time on the power play, both power play units out there. He's looked really good. He's got 8 points in his last 10 games. He's got 21 shots and 30 blocks, so combined 51. So that's about 5 per game that he's averaging over the last 10 games, which is about a little over 2 more points per game over the last 10, looking at DraftKings points. So yeah, definitely a guy that's trending up that's just way too cheap. He's performing right now like he's in the 5K to 5,500 to almost to the 6K range. He's kind of operating in this range right now, so he's just too cheap. So I'd probably consider Provorov for GPP just because you can get Sanheim just a little bit cheaper on the same team there. I got Sergachev here. If Hedman was to be out again, he is still a game time decision, but if he is to be out again, Sergachev steps up and he skates on the top power play for Tampa Bay. So I'll definitely consider him a punt play there. Dumoulin for Pittsburgh, he provides some punt value. Alex Biega for Vancouver is probably going to be 1% owned, and he's almost minimum price on both sites. I was auditing this morning. I haven't really looked at him a whole bunch this year. He's not skating a bunch of minutes of like 15 to 17 minutes per game, but recently he's getting that 3-4 combined blocks or shots to provide a high floor. He's got points in his last 2, so the box score definitely there, but I'm not looking at the points. I'm looking more at the floor from these guys at the bottom. So he is providing a nice, let's look at his last games here. Combined blocks and shots, 3, 4, 8, 4 over his last 4. So definitely like looking at that for a punt play. And then the other one is Eric Cernak. More again if Hedman is going to be out, but he's still been really good. He's right around that 20 minutes, so he's getting more ice time. And then looking at his block shots over the last few games, 3, 2, 9, 5, 5, 2, 4, 4. So he's hitting that floor, especially at his price at 3,500 on DraftKings, 3,600 in FanDuel. So there's definitely a combination. If you wanted to go those expensive stacks tonight, you grab 2 of these punt defensemen, you can easily get there and pay up for a goalie as well. So later on in the day, come back, right before lock, come back. I do add my top stacks. I usually add about 4 with a couple of notes of other players you can add or things to watch out for. Definitely check that out on my sheet. You can grab my sheet in a couple of different places. You can go over to my website, new website that I created. It's just a place where I share my sheet. So click whatever sport you're looking for, and the sheet's going to be at the top of the page. The nice thing is you can use the sheet right on this site without actually having to download the sheet. If you want to download the sheet, you maybe want to sort some columns or anything like that, what you're going to want to do is go up to File, make a copy, name it whatever you want, and click OK. It's going to open another one. You're going to be able to edit. So if you wanted to sort by, I want to see defensemen who have the most points, click anywhere in this column M, which is points, go to data, sort Z to A, and it sorts them that way. So that's what you can do there. You can also hit me up over on our community chat in RotoPros. I'm going to be over there till lock. I'm going to be in Hockey Talk. I'm going to be watching the hockey news for breaking news that comes out. Ask me any questions. That's where the skeleton lineups are going to be posted in here in RotoPros lineups. So make sure to get over there, check that out, ask me questions, DM me if you've got, want to share a lineup and get my thoughts on that. Definitely do that. Or you can hit me up on Twitter at Jaeger_bombs9 or tag at RotoPros as well on Twitter. That concludes the video for today. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like the video, subscribe. We've got a lot more videos coming out, usually Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We've got afternoon NBA breakdown. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to be doing an NHL breakdown. Might be getting up to 3 or 4 days a week for the NHL show there as well. We've got NASCAR video coming out for, it's the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500 from Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend. We've got PGA videos coming back to you next week for the Honda Classic. So there is a ton going on right now in DFS sports. So get over to rotopros.com, sign up. I am almost guaranteed you will not be disappointed. Thanks for watching the show today, everyone, and have a great day. Cheers.